This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, May 17th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News Digital Edition starts right now. Hi there, and thanks for joining us. After more than 80 days of fighting, Ukraine's effort to hold on to one last piece of territory in the port city of Mariupol is over. Hundreds of fighters holed up in the Azovstal steel plant have now laid down their weapons, and Russia has taken control of the area. Meanwhile, another family fleeing the war has made it to Saskatoon, and there are more on the way. Pratush Dayal has the details.
Tatiana Chudovich and her children are starting to settle in here in Saskatoon. Her husband, a priest, stayed behind in Ukraine.
I was in Kiev. I had a job. I have had my life in Ukraine. But I continue my life in Canada.
Chudovich fled Kiev with her children shortly after the Russian invasion. After a dangerous journey through Ukraine, they made it safely to Italy, where they stayed almost 2 months awaiting visas for Canada. In March, Canada started a fast-track program for Ukrainians fleeing war. Chudovich arrived in Saskatoon on the weekend, where she's staying with an old friend. She already has a social insurance number.
I'm tired. I'm tired, but I'm glad because it was my aim. And I'm glad that my children now in the safe.
Since the start of this emergency program, Canada has received applications from more than 223,000 Ukrainians. Close to 120,000 of them are still waiting to be approved. Over the next few weeks, some Ukrainians approved under the stream will have access to chartered flights to Canada. But Daria Zaporozhets waiting in Poland says those with pets can't access those free flights. Zaporozhets fled Kyiv with her family, her 2 big dogs, 4 cats and 2 non-poisonous snakes. She says she was encouraged to leave her pets behind. But Zaporozhets says they too are her family. She will arrive in Toronto next week and then drive to Saskatoon.
I want to live and know that tomorrow I will wake up and I will alive. And I don't must take my whole family to bomb shelter every 3 hours.
Zaporozhets hopes to open a bakery in Saskatoon. As for Chudovich, she says she needs to find a job and enroll her kids in school. But
I hope that when war is over, we turn to Ukraine, to Kyiv.
Chudovich says though Saskatoon is now her second home, Ukraine will always be her motherland. Pratush Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The opposition is calling for urgent action on what it calls a mental health and addictions crisis in Saskatchewan. It wants the government to support a bipartisan special committee of the legislature to work on the issue after the spring sitting comes to an end this week. The opposition says special committees have been struck in the past to examine other pressing issues, things like impaired driving and organ donation. The NDP critic for mental health and addictions, Doyle Vermette, invited 3 families who've lost loved ones to suicide to join him at the legislature today. They say the mental health system failed their children.
This is my son. He died May 1st, 2018. He has 2 children he's left behind, a little boy who's now 5 and another child who's in university. He was a homeowner. He was an employee. He was going to school. I knew he was dying. I knew it. I asked for help. I took him to the hospital. I took him be paid for private treatment outside of this province. We got no help. I'm still asking for help for other people that I see that this government and this province is failing.
We want to be able to bridge the barriers so that these kids do get the help they need before it's too late. There's so many gaps, and as a parent, or parents, we shouldn't have had to fight as hard as we did to try to save our son.
The picture my wife is holding is our daughter, Betty. We lost her to suicide in December. It's almost impossible to get help professionally unless you actually have attempted suicide and have to be taken to the emergency room. Even then, they fix you up, put a few band-aids on you and let you go without any release plan. I don't see any change. I don't see any help.
The government says its suicide prevention plan, called Pillars of Life, has a committee that families can contact. Premier Scott Moe says an all-party committee of politicians is not needed to address suicide. If you are in crisis or you know someone who is, get help by calling 1-833-456-4566 or text 45645. The freedom to enjoy a glass of wine in the park may appeal to some people, but others say it's a recipe for disaster. Either way, it's not something people will have to worry about this summer. The province's plan to push through changes to outdoor drinking rules before the summer has been met with resistance. Corey Coleman has more.
A number of places in Canada, like Calgary and Edmonton, have recently eased their rules when it comes to drinking alcohol in outdoor public places. And the government here in Saskatchewan, they want municipalities to be able to do the same if they want to. But the idea of sipping a cool one in a public park is getting mixed reactions.
I feel like if it can be done safely and doesn't disrupt those who are choosing not to drink in the park and disrupt families, then I'm all for it.
I mean, it's a good idea, but the city also have to look at the implications, and that would mean introducing more security.
I just think it's a recipe for disaster. I really don't think, unless it's governed and more people are policing the area, added cost, I just don't think that people are responsible enough to respect the park. So.
A lot of people don't like the alcoholic influence in front of young children, and I feel like parks are a place where people with families who bring young children to play.
The government wanted to push its bill through this week, before the end of spring session and before the summer, but some mayors say they're not ready for that. Prince Albert Mayor Greg Dion says he was shocked when he first heard about the motion. He says he's against permitting alcohol in public parks and needs more clarification. Regina Mayor Sandra Masters wasn't available for an interview, but her counterpart in Saskatoon says there would need to be due diligence in that city before drinking would be allowed in parks.
So I don't want to get out in front of council determining if it would be something like a pilot project. But I would suggest that it would for sure be a very targeted approach, and I think it's just so important that we don't send the message to the public that it's going to be wide open, that there can be drinking anywhere in parks, because I think there's a lot of safety and concerns that would arise from that as well.
Tossing back a beer or sipping on a glass of wine won't be in the cards this summer, though. The opposition says it won't support the motion without significant consultations with jurisdictions that have a similar policy. The opposition also says that the government needs to focus more on addiction support. Corey Coleman, CBC News, Regina.
Regina's Symphony Orchestra is short about $250,000 in revenue. Ticket sales are down by about half for the year. The RSO's executive director says COVID deterred people from going to the Symphony. It also canceled all of its performances in January and February because of Regina's high COVID numbers. On top of that, inflation is putting a strain on concert goers' pocketbooks. The RSO wants to raise the money through donations by May 31st, which is 2 weeks from today, which is its fiscal year end. Contract talks have yet to resume between the CFL and the Players Association, which means the preseason game scheduled in 6 days really is in jeopardy. The Riders are supposed to host Winnipeg at Mosaic Stadium on Victoria Day. Negotiations for a new agreement broke off on the weekend. A sports economist out of Halifax tells us that the CFL is on shaky ground from the pandemic and needs a full season.
They can shorten training camps. They cannot get away with another shortened schedule. They've already done it for the last 2 years. The first year they blew it with the bubble. The second year, fine, we were in the middle of, what was it, the fourth wave? That was the pre-Omicron variant. So they can't shorten this thing again. They've got to find a way that they get a full season in. Their TV partners expect it as well. And so the TV partners are not going to be understanding that they start losing weeks here. There needs to be that programming that's provided, 4 games a week for 18 weeks leading up to mid-November. And they cannot fail on that.
Flanders says Western teams like the Riders are pretty stable, but that losing Eastern teams is always a possibility. He says the CFL needs to support those teams, especially as interest grows in the Canadian Soccer League. So what do fans think about this? We checked in with a few in downtown Regina.
Well, it's a bit concerning. I mean, I'm voting for the players, but I don't know how long this strike's going to be.
I'm not sure why it took so long for them to get to this point. When the season's starting like that, you know, you'd have thought they'd have worked it out already.
I understand the CFL's offer eliminates the Canadian ratio, which it would be non-negotiable for me. I'd hand in my season tickets the next day.
I don't know, fair is fair. I mean, a lot of Canadians go down to the American football leagues, so I guess it's not a big deal to me.
I don't think it's a smart move. I can't see how, when they have made very little revenue, they're going to come through this if they continue to hold out on the strike. But I am, disappointed, but crossing my fingers.
The Riders say practices at Griffith Stadium have been canceled until further notice. It's believed a deal would have to be reached by tomorrow for that Riders-Bombers game to happen on Monday.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. The exclusive export event is back.
Well, we are getting closer to the May long weekend, and Ethan Williams joins me now to look at the forecast. It is not May long without some kind of rain or snow, so just tell me now, when does the yucky stuff arrive?
Well, for some of us, Sam, it's actually already arrived. There's some showers in parts of the province, but yeah, unfortunately, it's about to get worse for some of us. But where it was not too bad was up at Humboldt Lake. Big thanks to Brad and Pam Howe for sending us this shot of a gorgeous sunset behind the clouds there. Thanks so much for sending that in. A reminder, you can send photos anytime to saskphotos@cbc.ca if you have a shot you'd like to share too. Now, right now we're under this ridge, and this is bringing us the moderate temperatures that we've seen and the not so bad weather. There is some action at the surface level that's bringing some showers and thunderstorms today across the province, but this big broad trough starts to move in Wednesday and Thursday, and that's going to combine with some surface low pressure system activity, and that's going to bring some rain, snow, and cooler temperatures. Now, for tonight, scattered showers and thunderstorms for much of the province. The Yorkton-Melville area is likely going to pick up some significant rainfall tonight from this system moving through. We get to tomorrow, and I think mix of sun and cloud for much of the province, maybe some scattered showers here and there, but we'll watch this low pressure system moving in from Alberta, and as we get into early Thursday morning, it starts to move in, rain across much of south and central, and yes, some mixed precipitation in there by the time we get to the afternoon as temperatures start to drop, especially in east central Saskatchewan. Could also change completely over to snow, but I think it'll just be wet snow, really not much in the way of accumulation. Southeastern Saskatchewan down toward the Estevan, Oxbow, Carlisle area could also pick up some snow as well. Now, this is just for the next 24 hours through tomorrow with some rainfall. Again, Yorkton-Melville probably picking up the heaviest amounts. With showers, we're only looking at a few millimeters here and there throughout the province, and wind gusts will also be with us significantly over the next few days. Tomorrow morning there in the southeast, gusting between 50 and 60 kilometers an hour. We get into Thursday overnight, and we're already starting to see gusts pick up until they shift a little bit, and they pick up between 50, 60, maybe even 70 kilometers an hour. They die down a little bit as we get into Friday, but that doesn't mean that we're done with them. It looks like Friday and maybe even Saturday, the winds are still going to be significant, between 40 and 60 kilometers an hour. Now, all of this rain means good news for our wildfire danger. Today, a lot of areas under an extreme risk, but even tomorrow, this is the forecast for tomorrow, that risk goes down significantly, which is good news. Now, here's a look at our next 7 days in Regina. Spotty showers tomorrow and a high of 16, 5 to 10 millimeters with that system Thursday. Friday's quite a cool day, but Saturday, Sunday, maybe even the holiday Monday, not looking too bad, save for maybe some showers here and there. Saskatoon tomorrow, a high of 14. Mix of sun and cloud, again a chance of showers. Saskatoon, I think, will be spared again from this system moving through on Thursday. But again, a cold couple of days there Thursday and Friday. We will clear out and get some warm air. The holiday Monday actually looking not too bad in Saskatoon at this point. Sam, we will just have to wait and see if that holds together. I know a lot of people hoping that the snow doesn't arrive, but like you say, it's not May long with a little bit of the wet, white stuff.
A lot of our viewers packing for the first camping weekend of the season. How many seasons are you packing for if you are camping this weekend?
Yeah, I think you need all 4 if you're going this time around, seems.
Good to know. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And before you potentially hit the hiking trails this long weekend, you may want to watch where you step. Snakes have started emerging from their dens and they're looking for food and a mate. And as one prairie snake expert warns, being snake aware this weekend is really important.
A lot of the snakes have left or are leaving their dens and right now are migrating from their winter dens to summer feeding and breeding and foraging grounds. There may still be quite a bit of garter snake activity at some of the dens, particularly in the northern part of the province. And garter snakes will often breed right at the den site, but many other snakes disperse, and rattlesnakes in particular will breed in the field, and that's how sort of the genetic exchange happens. When we get into southwest Saskatchewan, that's when things get, really, really snaky. If you're in rattlesnake country, do not let your dog go off leash. If we were to be bitten, it's most likely going to be on our hands or our feet. But with a dog, it's going to be right on their face. And dogs often do not have a very good outcome from a rattlesnake envenomation. And when hiking in rattlesnake country too, if you carry a walking stick, it's really good because you can use it to sort of lightly brush the grass or the ground in front of you, so that it's going to be your walking stick that disturbs, a sleeping rattlesnake rather than your foot or maybe your dog. So yeah, keeping dogs and little ones close to you, staying on trails, and a walking stick is a really good idea.
And I didn't watch very much of that because I'm terrified of snakes, but some great tips to keep in mind. That is it for us today. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.